Welcome to Securing Your Brand. Join us as we explore trademarks, copyrights, and intellectual property to ensure the protection of your creative assets.
Hello and welcome to Securing Your Brand with attorneys Holly McFall and Melissa Jetta from Trademark Legal, your go-to source for the latest insights into intellectual property and legal trends. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and today we're going to talk about something that has been described to me as a little technical. So we're going to decode something that's called merely ornamental and why this trademark issue matters for merchandise brands. Holly, Melissa, so great to see you guys.
It is great to be back here.
Let's start with the basics. Let's keep it simple. What does it mean when the USPTO says that a trademark is, quote, merely ornamental?
So merely ornamental with the USPTO is really that your mark isn't functioning as a trademark, that it is just design on a product. This can come in a couple of different ways. If you are in the merchandise or business and that's what you're selling, you've just put your name on the t-shirt, on the merchandise, on the swim shirt, on the shorts or the shoes or whatever it may be, but you're not functioning as a brand. When it's that type of merely ornamental, it's kind of easy to overcome. You're in the merchandise sale business. That's the good you're selling. And you overcome that by providing a better specimen, showing how it's being sold, making sure the tags are on properly, that it's not just a word or slogan. It is actually your brand on the shirt representing your company. So you cannot just put a slogan on a t-shirt and file a trademark for that. It doesn't work that way. But if you're actually in the sales business, if you're actually selling merchandise, then yes, you can overcome merely ornamental. What can't be overcome of that office action is when it is just a slogan or your brand and you're not actually in the merchandise business. You're not actually selling merchandise. You provide another goods or service. And then that's difficult to overcome for the merely ornamental.
I mentioned before we hit record that I previously worked in marketing, promotional marketing, branding, helping clients get swag and t-shirts and all that. And a lot of the companies that we worked with were restaurants, and we're in Colorado, lots of breweries, distilleries, stuff like that. We're big in that industry. So, and a lot of times people would, sometimes they just put their logo on there. Other times they put some funny catchphrase on there. So if they're selling these, because they were selling them as a way to make some extra money, and obviously it's also marketing, putting it out into the world, that they can't they can't trademark that cool slogan just based on having it on their shirt. Is that kind of what you're saying, or am I missing something?
That's exactly it. You can't get it just for that slogan. Now, if your brand existed and your trademark has existed for a while and you've acquired distinctiveness, that's another technical term here. Your brand has existed, it's an identifiable brand. You can then go ahead and start selling merchandise, file a new application for the sale of that merchandise for an existing brand that has acquired distinctiveness. It's like a secondary, ancillary trademark application and registration for those goods that you're selling. You do have to be selling the goods, not just giving them away as promotional material.
Right.
You have to be selling those goods. But slogans or catchy phrases are completely different because that brand, that slogan has to exist to have acquired distinctiveness. Otherwise, it's just merely ornamental on that t-shirt or on that jug or coffee mug. Got
it. Okay, that makes more sense. I get that. And a lot of people want to trademark their merch, whether it's t-shirts, hoodies, so on. They slap a cool slogan on it. And there's something called a Class 25 for apparel that we spoke about before. Mm-hmm. What is Class 25 and where do these companies go wrong?
So basically Class 25 is clothing. So you're saying that you are in the clothing business, like Hanes making t-shirts.
Right.
So on a Hanes t-shirt, Hanes will be on the tag, which tells everyone that Hanes is who made that t-shirt, not, whoever is promoting the slogan on the front of the t-shirt. So, when we're talking about specimens that we submit with the applications of proof of use, it's important to put the brand name in these specific spots on, say, this t-shirt that show that the brand is the one that actually made the shirt. So typically that would go on the tag, on the inside and the back, or, tiny up in the corner, not big all the way across the front. So those are kind of just general rules to live by when it comes to those specimens.
Well, that's interesting. So one of the things that we used to do at that company is some people would, some of the shirts that we got, the bulk shirts, they had what were called tearaway tags. So you could tear away the tag and print the brewery's logo, the company's logo or whatever inside the tag. Were we not supposed to do that?
No, you can do that because you're going ahead and getting.
I'm not with them anymore. I'm fine, but
I mean, I'm admitting to past bads if that's what it was.
Right.
No, you can do that. You can go ahead, and that's part of branding it. So you want to make sure that we're using the brewery as an example. The brewery is now selling T-shirts, they're selling other merchandise, and they're going ahead and they're labeling it properly, the back of the shirt, they're labeling it on the sales tag, and maybe they have a cool design or a cool logo that's going to go on the front. But that's not what makes them in the merchandise or the apparel sale business. It's actually tagging it properly, making sure it's recognized as part of their brand. Their brand has acquired distinctiveness. So their restaurant service, their bar service, the brewery, whatever manufacturing it may be, is being represented by that T-shirt. Okay. And they're selling it for that purpose. So then they can go ahead and apply under apparel. That's class 25. And they've got acquired distinctiveness. They're a known brand. And then go ahead and register and protect their trademark in that class. Because remember, you're only protected in the class in which you're registered in. So our brand name, Secure Mark Legal, is protected for legal services, but I'm not protected for coffee mugs and stationery or, backpacks or gym shoes or anything else along those categories. Those are different classes. I'm only protected in the class in which we're registered in.
Okay, that makes sense. And what happens when the USPTO issues an ornamental refusal? Can the applicant fight back, or is that it?
Yeah, really just like with any other issue, we would kind of tackle it and analyze it from the legal standpoint. Is the trademark examiner correct? We don't always agree with the examiner. And then it depends on specifically what they're objecting to. So if it's something just as simple as, where the mark was on that T-shirt, if we, go back to our client and, ask, do you have other versions of the shirt? Do you have other photographs? Maybe they just didn't send us a photo of that tag and they have it, and it's easy to just simply submit another file for another specimen, and that could overcome the issue. Or it may be something more complex that requires a legal argument.
So with the rise of influencers and influencer marketing, how does that work? Because I mean, I've seen a lot of influencers that kind of start building a brand, and then they start offering coffee cups or things like that. I've had people send me stuff, that I worked with in the podcasting sense that were kind of in that influencer space. How do they run into issues when they're trying to do some of this merch that they do?
So you're not filing that application immediately. That application for their merchandise is for their existing brand. So they've got a brand that exists. They've acquired distinctiveness for that brand. They've been around for a while, and that brand is, a known brand. And then they're going to go ahead and start selling merchandise. And so that secondary application, that's for the merchandise, they can have their acquired distinctiveness and they're functioning as a trademark. Merely ornamental is basically the USPTO saying this mark doesn't function as a trademark. It's not functioning to recognize this brand. Okay.
And a lot of people might assume that, because they have a copyright or a catchy phrase, as we talked about before, that they automatically have a trademark. And I even think I messed up the two, copyright, trademark, in our last episode. So if you have a copyright, doesn't mean you have a trademark. Is that correct?
Two different areas, two different types of IP protection. Trademarks protect things that are for sale, services, and recognize a brand. Copyrights protect tangible creative works. So it's a creative work in tangible form. You don't have to sell it to have a copyright. You can go ahead and register that copyright for whatever creative work. And the moment you put it in tangible form, it is entitled to copyright protection.
Okay.
Trademarks you file, you get them registered. They recognize a brand. They recognize a goods or service.
Okay. Got it. One of these days, I'm going to figure out the difference between those two, but just give me a little more time. All right.
People often call us and you're confused about it. And we're happy to go through it and see what type of IP asset they can protect. because
Right.
sometimes they call us and they say, I need a patent. I'm like, no, you really need a trademark. Or they call us and I need a trademark. No, you actually need a patent. That's an invention. So we talk about the different areas, and we want to learn about your business, because I want to learn what areas need to be protected and how they can be protected.
And a lot of times they need more than one of those
Sure.
3 areas. You come to us needing a patent. If you really do, you have this product you created, you need a patent on that design, but you're also going to presumably sell it at some point. You're going to come up with a brand and a name for that product. We can trademark the name. If you have, some really cool artwork on the packaging of that product, that may be copyright as well. You don't always know what you need until you go through it with the legal analysis and talk to us about it.
Yet another area of business that most business owners don't know everything, or most business entrepreneurs or whatever don't know everything about every aspect of their business. So that's another one that people need to be aware of, it sounds like, to make sure that they know the difference between these and when to get each one.
Absolutely.
Have you guys worked with any clients who got hit with that ornamental refusal and were able to successfully turn it around?
We have gotten some where they have gone to, they either filed their application themselves and they immediately filed within the apparel class or for merchandise, or they went to a low cost trademark service and filed under that same class 25 or under merchandise, crops to goods, stationery, and they got hit with it. And we had to give them the bad news that, wait a minute, now is not the time to file for this. We need to make sure that we're protecting your actual goods or service. You're a chiropractor, you're an insurance agent, you're selling cars. Well, your coffee mugs aren't protected right away. So you got to make sure we get your first protect your name under the goods and services that you are actually selling and doing for your business. And then we'll go back and do it. But we've also gotten it where our own applications, where we've had to go back and show, yes, like Holly said, can't create a new specimen, but maybe you have a better picture for me, or it's the website is, designed and it can show that it's for sale. And that is the business that you're in. You are not just putting words on a t-shirt. You're actually in the business of selling those merchandise in that brand.
Yeah. So that's really like the biggest, I think, distinction, right? Is if you're a brewery and you're selling t-shirts, your business is a brewery, not t-shirt selling, not apparel. And if you're an apparel company or you're building an apparel company, then that's a different process. So that's probably where people get pretty confused, I would guess.
That does create the confusion. And, just because you're an apparel business, you still got to go through the right process. Or just because you're another service, you're the brewery, doesn't mean you don't want to protect your merchandise in the future. You've built that brand. You're entitled to protect that merchandise in the future and prevent someone else from selling t-shirts or merchandise with your name on it.
But we also want to make sure, of course, that you're protected in your core business. So while we may be able to get you in class 25 for clothing, we also want to definitely make sure you're in the brewery class, or the class for your main business.
Otherwise, you're going to have to pivot away from brewing and just doing t-shirts,
right?
Which seems easier. Brewery seems like a hard gig. So I think I'd rather sell t-shirts. If someone listening is serious about turning their merch into a real brand, like if someone's got some sort of a slogan, some sort of thing that's like, people are like, wow, that hits, like you gotta do something with that. What's your top legal advice to help them get in that, go in the right direction and avoid some potentially costly mistakes?
We want to first look and see what your actual other service is, though. What is the core business that you're doing? We want to look at that business first. Make sure we can protect the name in that sphere and that brand is protected there. And then we can start branching out. That slogan, that tagline, that can be used to identify your business now, if you are using it to identify your business, and trademark it there. And then we'll start branching out and going beyond that. But making sure you have the base of your IP in place, you have your core IP in place first, is way more important than your merchandise, unless you're in the merchandise business. My favorite legal answer, it depends.
It depends. Well, I appreciate you guys kind of helping dissect this sort of complex concept. And Holly, I'd like to thank your dog for pitching in a little bit there too. Like that was nice to get their take as well.
I'm so glad she participated.
We're going to have to create her own brand, because she keeps showing up and appearing not only in our podcasts, in our phone calls, and our webinars, which is great. She's going to become our mascot.
Oh, there you go. You've got a mascot now. I love it. What's her dog's name?
Penny.
All right.
Yeah.
Penny, the mascot for Secure Mark. I love it.
At least she's cute.
She is. I saw her walk by a couple times. She's very cute. Very cute. All right. Well, thank you for joining us on Securing Your Brand with attorneys Holly McFall, Melissa Jetta, and mascot Penny from SecureMark Legal. To connect with the team, visit securemarklegal.com, and please like and subscribe to our channel and leave us a review. So great to see you both. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Kevin. This was a great episode together.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.